What is up, everybody? It is the Daily Fantasy Insiders TV show, and we have a big announcement. We have a new sponsor for the Insiders TV show. It's going to be FantasyElite. That is right. Our good friends there at FantasyElite, Grant Girton and Marcus, that helped start up Fanium, and Grant, who is a football and basketball guest on the show. They're sponsoring the show up until they're sponsoring MLB and NFL. So we're going to be doing a lot of stuff with the FantasyElite brand. It's fun. It's refreshing. It's crisp. It's good.
And it's great for baseball. I'm going to be on there. I just got some money in my account. I'm about to be on there all night because I don't have anything to do. So I'm going to get in a bunch of drafts tonight.
I ain't got no worries. Yeah. So it's going to be a really fun, interactive show, and we've already talked about how interactive the app is. So if you haven't already, download the FantasyElite app. But without further ado, we'll get to some of that stuff later. Tomorrow we'll have our first draft with Napster Man and Mr. Tuttle on the show. But without further ado, Davis, I'm going to kick it to you, bud, and you take it on.
All right, well, welcome everyone to the daily MLB show here on Insiders TV. I'm Davis Maddock, at Davis Maddock on Twitter. I'm here with Derek Carty from Fantasy Insiders, the Hardball Times, Fantastics, a bunch of sites. One of the best seasonal players who graces us with his presence here. And we're also got Ben Pritchett of FantasyInsiders.com, at Natural Slugger on Twitter, 2 R's. And we're going to talk about some daily fantasy baseball on Wednesday, April 23rd, 2014.
What does 2 R's mean?
It's 2 R's in the handle.
Yeah, in the word natural and the word slugger.
Is it not 2 R's at the end of slugger?
No.
Okay, well, then I've been tweeting at the wrong guy.
That would be badass, though. Natural slugger.
Yeah. That's how the Royals mascot spells it. It's 3 R's, so, that's what I'm used to. Let's just get to it though, because there are actually quite a fair amount of games. I don't see any weather concerns right now. The Yankees-Red Sox game has wind blowing in. So does the Orioles-Blue Jays game. But other than that, I don't think there are any concerns about weather that we need to have. So I guess that we can talk about Vegas totals. Did any jump out at you right away, Derek?
No, not Sorry, you cut out for a second. Could you say that one more time?
Vegas lines. Did any of them just jump out at you right away?
Oh, not particularly. I don't know. Is there one, like, are you baiting me? Is there one I should be saying right now?
No, not. I just, basically everyone's all over Waka today, and he is a -140 favorite, and that game is tied for the lowest over-under of the night slate. So basically, the Vegas basically agrees with the daily fantasy baseball industry that Michael Wacha is the play tonight. That's about all there is with that. Let's talk about Michael Wacha. Derek, you did the pitchers today, so I'll let you take the Michael Wacha discussion.
It's funny. Wacha wasn't a guy I ever really saw myself picking as like my top pitcher of the day, just because I don't know. I feel like Wacha is kind of an overrated player in general. He went so high in expert leagues this year, and he costs, a pretty lot of money on the daily sites. And, I mean, he's been really good this year. He's done, a lot better than I expected him to. It's just I kind of have some reservations with him, but the matchup today is really good. He's got the Mets. Park shift is a little bit unfavorable, but the Mets strike out a lot. They're not a very good offense. So, I mean, Wacha's the guy today. Greinke is a solid option if you're kind of against Wacha for whatever reason, or if you just kind of want to be contrarian but still go with a high dollar guy. But I think Wacha's the best.
Ben, are you on Wacha?
I'm on Wacha as a pitcher. I think today's a really good matchup cash games, I think you kind of have to chalk it up because I think everybody else is going to do that. It'd be a tough sell to go somebody else when the Mets are pretty lacking. Although I mentioned this to Dan before the show, this Mets lineup is actually not that bad looking on paper. So it might be a little bit better. He might get touched up a little bit, but I really like Waka. I differ from Derek in that I think Waka is a stud. I remember watching him in spring last year and didn't know much about him and was just like, this guy's awesome. And then he came up and he struggled a little bit and got sent back down, came back up and was what we thought he was. So what I thought he was. And then now he's running into this year and he's doing really well. He lives low in the zone. I like that. And so it's just going to be what Mets team is going to show up, but they have the lefty bats. If you look at their lineup, it's not that bad that they could touch him up a little bit. So he's not somebody I'm necessarily going to just overly recommend, but I like him. He's cheaper than Greinke most places, so that's good. But yeah, I guess you could say I'm in agreement with Derek on that one.
I've been meaning to bring this one up. Michael Salfino, he's a fantasy writer for Yahoo. I've been talking to him about dailies a little bit, and he kind of looks at statistics like this weird way that I definitely have not trained myself to look at, but basically one of his indicators is like a team's extra base hits divided by how many times they K or something like that. I don't remember exactly what it was, but basically through this metric that he discovered, the Mets were like the offense to target with your starting pitcher picks. Derek laughed, so I assume he has an opinion on this.
I think, let me pull up the leaderboard to see, but I know Salfino is like super on isolated slugging against for pitchers, and for just a whole slew of reasons, it's just not really something. It gets. No, go.
Get
Ben.
him, Derek. Get him, Derek. Get him.
Get him.
No, he's not here to defend himself, but there's just
a
a lot of reasons, and some of it is just kind of mathy and statistical, and not the kind of thing you want to be watching on a webcast me talk about. But I don't know. I mean, I agree. The Mets offense isn't particularly good, but I have a lot of reservations about if you're referencing the same thing that I think you are. I don't know. I'm not into it.
Yeah, that's fine. But anyways, I feel pretty confident in that spot with Waka. I think that he's definitely like the number one guy today. But I think that after that, I'll probably differ with both you guys. I think Tyson Ross is my second guy today. And I know the run environment in Milwaukee is not great, but I also know that he has the platoon advantage against like a significant proportion of that lineup, and that his skills, like all his peripherals this year, it doesn't seem like he's pitching too far over his head. Are you with me on that, Derek, or no?
Sorry, I was looking at the ISO leaderboard. It is the Mets. They're at the very bottom of the ISO leaderboard. And
yeah.
my main thing with that is just like, it's just one thing. It's just a combination of stats that are kind of weighted like arbitrarily. I mean, I'd rather look at something that's more comprehensive. And when you look at something like that, the Mets are, I mean, they're not the worst. They're bad, but they're not, as bad as that makes it seem. So,
I will say this on ISO. It's something that I use for hitters a lot. I don't really look at it with pitchers all that much, but when I'm looking at hitters, it's like weighted on base average and ISO are like the two statistics that I really look at when I'm making my lineup choices, especially for tournaments.
Yeah, weighted on base average is better, and the Mets are at the bottom there too, but not quite as drastically as they are with ISO.
Yeah.
So back to what were you talking about?
Tyson Ross.
Oh yeah. I don't know. Ross wasn't on my list today. I think you are kind of right about the platoon split thing, where he's facing a Brewers lineup that's very righty heavy, so he's going to have the platoon split against pretty much the entire lineup. But the park shift kind of hurts. I like Ross as a pitcher, but I think there's better options today.
Ben, are you on Tyson at all?
No, I was just looking at Tyson Ross as an option as like a second, third starting pitcher, but I have an insane valuation of Alfredo Simon these days, just simply because
Isn't he like 45?
Yeah, I mean, he's been around for a while, just kind of eating up doing the relief duties later in his career. But he was a starter. Let's see, he's been in the league since 2008, off and on. But yeah, I like the way that he pitches. He has like 4 different fastballs, all with different movement. And as long as he stays on the black and he changes his speeds really well, like he's done so far, he's a tough pitcher. Or from what I saw, the 2 guys that really surprised me this year were Aaron Harang, who now is just changed everything for me. He's looking more like Greg Maddux than Aaron Harang, and then you have Alfredo Simon, who's really taken this starting job and really run with it. And I think that if you're thinking about, this is why I'm bringing this up, if you're thinking about targeting Simon, I wouldn't do that. Now, if you're thinking about starting him, then I would definitely wouldn't have him as my number 1, but a number 2 or a number 3, go for it. But definitely not my number 1. The strand rate's ridiculously high so far, and so there's some other little factors that you need to be worried about. But yeah, I'm curious about Derek. Derek, what do you think about Simon right now?
I actually don't hate Simon. I think he's pretty good. I mean, he relies, fairly heavily on his fastball, but it's a pretty good fastball. This year, like you're saying, the strand rate's too high, the walk rate's too low. But I mean, he gets ground balls. He's not going to strike out a ton of guys, but he's in a great park today. He's a guy, I could see, slotting in as my second or third pitcher today. I don't think he made my list, but he's not a guy I would tell you to stay away from either. I think Simon's a better pitcher than most people think.
Well, I know Derek would agree with me. It's hard when you're writing up these pitchers on split slates because you want to kind of include early guys with late guys, even though there's some late guys that you kind of have to be aware of that you can't include in the rankings because you have to do 3 pitchers on Draft Street if you decide to go 3 starters. And then if you go 3 starters in the early slate, then you're dealing with a lot of pitchers. And so it's hard to nail the ones you like the best.
Yeah, and today, I thought pitching today in general, like, after the first couple, like, you have some guys who are, like, they have decent matchups, but no one who, like, really, like, I don't know, overwhelms you. I thought pitching was really hard to pick today after you get past Walker and Greinke.
See, and that's why I like Ross, because I don't think I want to pay up for Greinke, just because it makes constructing a lineup pretty hard. And, I mean, Ross has been really good, and it's like, his ERA is 2.1, which is like obviously that's probably above his head, but his fielding independent pitching is 2.9. So like he's not having like some season that's just like super unsustainable.
No, Ross is a good pitcher, and especially I think the like projection systems are gonna they're gonna undervalue Ross because they're gonna be going back further than last year, and before last year he was pretty terrible.
Pretty bad,
but he made some changes last year where he's kind of a different pitcher now, and the projection systems aren't necessarily going to take that into account. So he's closer to like his whatever he has now at 348 xFIP, than he is to like his 410 steamer projection.
His fastball velocity's down so far. If you look at from what it was last year, which you're talking about those changes he made. I remember watching him towards the tail end of last year. He was throwing 96. He was averaging about in the mid 90s, but he was touching 96, 97, like even later into the games sometimes. So I'm looking at his Fangraphs right now. It's like he's sitting at 92, which might explain that rough start he had at the beginning of the year. But no, I like Tyson Ross too. I'm with you guys.
I don't know what Dave's telling us to do right now.
Yeah.
Is he telling us to move on and stop talking about Tyson Ross peripherals?
I think that's what he's telling us.
Okay, all right. So Tyson Ross is a decent value option. As far as like tournament plays go, is there anyone that you guys would consider? Someone in the chat is asking about Mike Pelfrey, to which I responded, "Oh God, no! Oh God, no!"
That's the appropriate response. I would respond exactly the same.
Yeah. But are there any other tournament options that you guys were looking at tonight?
Yeah, I think there's some other options. Let me see. I think Kyle Loesch is actually a solid option. I think Kyle Loesch is a lot better pitcher than people give him credit for, and I'm sure Ben is going to laugh at me because Loesch is one of those guys that I tend to like, who doesn't have good stuff, but kind of gets by just on pitchability and control and stuff like that. And I think Loesch is a good pitcher. I think the Padres' offense is very weak. Miller Park isn't great, but I think Loesch is definitely a solid option today.
I actually, Kyle Loesch is one of the ones that we might agree with on most nights. because I actually like the way he pitches.
Oh, well then.
Yeah, I know. He's kind of the peak
Aw.
end of where the line of Derek Carty and Ben Pritchett meet. I would say Kyle Loesch is that line. It's the Loesch line. So he's kind of on my side too.
What do you guys think about Odorizzi tonight, or Pineda? I think those are two sort of medium price options that people recognize those names and will want to know about them.
Odorizzi was kind of my pitcher number 7 today. He was the one who got cut like right at the last minute in my article. I think Odorizzi has a good matchup today. I think the Twins aren't particularly good, especially with Willingham and Arcia still out. He's up against Mike Pelfrey, who is probably going to get rocked. And Odorizzi, I mean, he's playing at home. The Trop's a good field. He's got a good defense behind him. He's going to be throwing to a great catcher, whoever starts today, Hannigan or Molina. So I think Odorizzi is, I mean, there's obviously risk, but I think he could be a solid play today.
You can tell by some of my hitter picks that I don't think Odorizzi gets out of this unscathed. But I agree with Derek that I think he wins, but I think he gives up a couple home runs along the way. Or at least one. He gives up at least one home run in this game.
Certainly possible. I mean, Minnesota, I mean, they're not a super power-heavy team, especially with those guys out, but they do have a guy like Kubel who could get to him, or even Mauer or Dozier. Yeah. So, I mean, there are bats he's going to have to get past.
I would put Pinto in there too. So Pinto, who's killing righties, and then you have Kubel. Those are the guys I like: Mauer, Pinto, Kubel, and if you need to go Dozier in there, you can throw him in there too, just as a possibility of taking him yard because he's a fly ball. You know that, Derek. He's an extreme fly ball pitcher, which works out, for most parks, and it works out well in Tampa. But I still think he could get lit up.
Mm-hmm.
But he's not a bad not a bad option. I mean,
given the options that there are today, I mean, I agree. There's certainly risk with him. He could definitely get lit up. But I mean, given the risk that there is pretty much with all the pitchers today at this range, I think he's one of the better options.
And it must be said, Vegas likes him too, so they like the Rays to win that game.
They do. Yeah. Well, because Pelfrey is so bad. Ryan Hodge asked earlier in the comments, are either one of you guys on Smiley tonight?
Smiley made my preliminary list, partially because Andre Rienzo is not a good pitcher. He's making his starting debut tonight for his seasonal starting debut, and he's just not a good pitcher. The Tigers are going to really kind of tear him a new one. I think the White Sox offense is pretty good, though. I really like a lot of their bats, so even though I really like Smiley, I think there are better options.
Ben?
I totally agree. Yeah, there's better options. Smiley is a good pitcher. He's a good left-hander, and you can't say that much in Major League Baseball these days. So he's got a bright future, but I don't think it starts today. Right. There's too many good White Sox right-handed bats. I mean, Abreu, Alexi, even Flowers these days can charge one. So, yeah.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and move on to hitters then, because I think that Derek's initial analysis was right, that pitching today is it's Greinke, Waka, and then everyone's sort of going to have one of those guys in the middle that they like or that they're forced to use on Draft Street. So I think that because there's going to be so much overlap with Waka and Greinke today, just like the Felix Hernandez day from I think it was Monday, it's going to be really important to nail your pitching or your hitting picks. And you did the hitters today, correct, Ben?
I did.
Okay, cool. Well, let's start off with catcher. Give me your number one catcher.
Number one, not taking into price at all, I like Brian McCann. So the reason for that being is even though Lackey historically over his career is not terrible, especially at limiting home runs, I like McCann when he can pull it out of the park. I brought up his numbers on pull home runs. It's like ridiculous. It's 142 out of 179 of his career home runs have been pulled. He's just that kind of lefty. And Lackey's given up 5 home runs already this year. He's not the pitcher he used to be. Just think that's one you kind of want to target if you're going to be going if you're going to be in this game, which does have a high total. I think it's like 8.5 or 9. So if you're going to get in this game, I think it's the Yankees that I want first. And so McCann is definitely my top catcher option. If you're spending, if you're going to keep spending and you don't want to go McCann, I think Wieters is the other option for me. Just like him better powerfully for his power from the left-handed side.
Cardi?
I agree. I think McCann is the top option, price insensitive. I think though, if I'm going for like value, I think Wieters is a good option. I think Alex Avila is a better one. He's got a huge platoon split. He's got Rienzo, who we were talking about before, who's probably not in good shape tonight. So I like Avila as my value catcher. I think Jan Gomes is also a solid one because I don't think super highly of Jason Vargas.
Okay. What about? Did you say Alex Avila?
I did.
Yeah. Okay. That's kind of who I like tonight. I love to target those awful pitchers. It's like in general, that's just sort of, especially at a position where you don't want to spend the money. Like, talk yourself into a story where this guy can like hit a home run. Yeah. I don't think there's a lot of conversation at catcher today.
No, I think Avila really is the guy. I mean, Rienzo is, he's kind of a fly ball guy. I think maybe, I don't know. Regardless, he's not a good pitcher. Avila's got good power, got the platoon advantage. He's playing at home. I like Avila a lot today.
He's a fly ball guy if you just can consider fly balls in the seats as fly balls. And he's a fly ball guy. But now I tend to. Thank you, David. I tend to agree with you guys, but I would say that the discussion is bigger than maybe you're narrowing it down to. I think there's a lot of value in catcher today. I think there are a lot of options at catcher today.
I agree. I think there's a lot of options, but I don't like. I think Avila's matchup just kind of exceeds anyone else I'd be considering. Although there are options.
If you're looking for a minimum catcher play, a bare minimum, most places, Chris Herman is minimum, and back to targeting Odorizzi's fly ball tendencies. Left-hander catcher eligible pretty much everywhere. He is minimum. So if you're just punting, that's my punt.
I don't have any problems with that as a punt.
I hope everyone is following this Mike Pelfrey conversation in chat, by the way, because it's been hilarious.
Wait, what's the conversation?
This dude has been telling us that he's gonna go 6 innings pitch with 1 earned run, and then finally after 20 minutes he's like, "Oh, I'm a Mets fan." So.
Sounds like Ben with his Braves plays.
Hey, dude, I've been so right on the Braves pitching staff. Before the season ever started, I said they were awesome. When they got hit with injuries, I said they were still going to be awesome, and they are. So, eat it.
Yeah, you said Harangue was going to have 11 Ks today.
I have backed down off of Harangue. I hated Harangue at the beginning of the year. I'm liking what I see now.
I think a lot of the things with Harangue, a lot of his contextual factors have kind of improved this year. Like he's throwing to Evan Gattis most games, who's a good pitch framer. His park, I think, is a little better than he's been used to. So, I mean, Harangue isn't this good, but I didn't think Harangue was as bad as most people thought he was.
Evan Gattis is good at everything.
Yeah, I love Gattis.
All right, let's talk about first base. Miguel Cabrera, still super cheap, in an excellent spot. Taking him across the board worked out last night. I don't really see, like, as long as you can get the best hitter in baseball at, like, a discounted price all across the board, I don't know why you wouldn't take him in this spot. Are either one of you guys not on Cabrera? Especially on FanDuel.
Yeah, when his price is so cheap, like especially on FanDuel, even though he doesn't have the platoon advantage tonight, he still is up against a really weak pitcher, and given the price, I mean, I think you kind of have to go with him. I mean, there are other options, but Cabrera's a good one.
Yeah, that's no question. If you're playing a cash game, you're going to have a hard time getting you're going to have overlap, basically. You're going to have overlap with Waka, and you're going to have overlap with Miggy. And there's reason for that. And it's easy. Miggy's the top play. It's an easy write-up. I'm running out of things to say about Miggy. We've seen him bust out. Hopefully this slump's over, and we'll see him just kind of coast into what he is. But there are a lot of options, as Derek said. There's Votto's an option, even though Morton's a ground ball pitcher, and I don't like targeting ground ball pitchers. He was really bad last start. Maybe that could carry over, and Votto can hit anybody. I like Votto from the 2 spot in that order, too. And then you just have the normals, Abreu, Pujols. I mean, just the guys. They're guys there up at the expensive end, other than Miggy, but reserve all of those for GPPs. Don't even touch them in the cash games. And then if you want to dig a little deeper, I like Juan Francisco as a min play on FanDuel. I like him a lot. But again, you could call that a homer play because he was a Brave at one point, but he has great power as long as he's facing right-handers, and you always run that risk that he could get pinch hit for, but he's batting 5th behind those big bats of the Blue Jays in front of him. And then I also like Alan Craig as a cheap option as well against Sneaks.
He's super cheap on FanDuel. I think you have to run a tournament lineup out there with Greinke and Matt Adams at least, or Alan Craig, my bad. Yeah. Derek, do you want 30 seconds to refute the chat's idea that Gaddis is not a good defensive catcher?
No, because they're wrong. I have no reason to defend it. I say he's good, thus he is.
God damn it, Derek.
Is Cards on the show today?
I'd much rather talk about why Ben is right about Juan Francisco, because I love him, especially today against a fly baller and Tillman. I think Francisco is just, I love cheap power in general, whether it's daily or year-long leagues, and I love Francisco. I think you could also go Loney or Nick Swisher. But I think it's Miggy or Francisco is a great punt.
I know nothing about this Francisco dude. Is he like a minor league call-up? Like, is he a bench hitter? I don't even know what that is.
Don't talk about it then, Davis.
No, I'm asking you guys because if I don't know, then there's definitely some people in the chat that don't know.
He, as a platoon, as a lefty versus a righty, power-wise, he's really, really good. For a minimum salary guy. So that's basically what we're talking about. And you're dealing with Tillman, who gave up 30-something homers last year. So it's one of those games where he could really run into one. He's hitting fine. He blew through the minors, was great in the minors. And I never understood why this guy well, I do understand. I shouldn't say that. But he should be on a team platooning at all times. I don't understand why he had a little trouble catching on places after he left the Brewers.
Wait, hold on.
I thought like a platoon with him. No,
is he like Willie Mo Pena? Is like that the sort of dude that he is? Like just mashes from one side of the plate?
Not quite that extreme, but yeah, he's kind of like, I mean, he's going to strike out a lot, but he's got a lot of power. And I thought like him and Reynolds would have formed like a great platoon in Milwaukee in that park this year, but I don't know.
I completely agree with that.
I was shocked when they designated him for assignment in favor of Lyle Overbay.
But see, the problem is not all teams look at baseball the way the A's do, and they should with platooning more often than not. I mean, you platoon pitchers. I don't understand why you don't platoon hitters when they have a distinct advantage one way or the other. I understand you have roster restrictions, but still, doesn't make sense.
Get those nerds! Nerds!
All right.
Just in regards to Gaddis, the main thing I like about him defensively is that he does the one thing that we kind of can quantify in terms of catcher defense, and that matters the most. He does it, pretty well, which is framing runs. I mean, even though he's, kind of a biggish guy, he maybe doesn't look like he's super athletic or whatever. Evidence so far is that he works with the pitching staff pretty well. So that's what I meant in regard to Gaddis.
And I just found a
Scout
baseball
school.
I just found a Baseball Prospectus article that agreed with your position, Cardi, with the pitch framing data. All right, let's move on. Let's move on to second base. Probably starting with Ian Kinsler. Is he the top play, Ben?
Oh, for second base, yeah. I mean, I had two early slate guys. I didn't really realize that when I was making my second base rankings, but yeah, Ian Kinsler's the guy for the night slate for sure. No, I don't even think it's close. He's another Miggy play.
Oh, really? You think it's just locked in like that? I mean, he is kind of pricey.
Well,
second baseman.
Well, his splits are worse against righties than they are against lefties. Like, it's not even close. But I still like Kinsler.
Derek, who else do you like at second base?
Yeah, I have Kinsler with a pretty big split. So I think the price matters with him, even though he's got a good opponent. I think Ben Zobrist looks good at second base. He's a switch hitter who hits better against righties, and he's got Pelfrey today. I think I'm trying to find a lineup here. Do we have a Cleveland lineup yet?
I'm not sure, but I know that
Me
Ryan Rayburn is second base eligible on FanDuel and then maybe on DraftKings. Is that right? Someone in the chat can tell me.
Yeah, Rayburn and Aviles are both in the lineup today. I'm not exactly sure where they qualify on the various sites, but if either of them are second base, I think both have pretty good matchups today.
Yeah, Rayburn's a great minimum play as a second baseman if you go there.
Yeah, you can save a lot of money on FanDuel if you take Rayburn there.
I think Ryan Flaherty looks pretty good. Another kind of cheap play like that. Yeah, that'd kind of be where I'd be looking in terms of.
And Scooter.
Don't fall into that, Davis. They baited you for Scooter, man.
No, he donged last night and I had him. It was great.
No,
against
I
Tyson
know.
Ross?
No, not against. I'm just.
No, I mean tonight. You're taking Scooter?
Yeah, I don't. I'm just mentioning him.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I.
Who is Lurie Garcia? Someone in the chat is asking about Lurie Garcia.
Lurie Garcia is kind of a below average second baseman. He's got a little bit of speed. Is he playing tonight? Is he?
Yeah, he's batting second.
Batting second? Okay.
Against Smiley? I don't know. That doesn't seem like
it looks like. Does Don Kelly? Where does he qualify at? I know he plays everywhere. He's batting second for the Tigers tonight.
He's third base. He's third base outfield, mostly outfield.
Okay.
I like him tonight. I like that a lot.
Yeah, I do too, actually. As like a punt play. Yeah, Lurie Garcia. He's against Smiley though. Garcia. I don't know. And especially Smiley's a lefty. And lefties are harder to steal against than righties because they're actually looking directly at you when they're pitching. So for a guy like Garcia, who speed is part of his game, I don't know. I think there are better punt options at second tonight.
Yeah, I think that if you're punting, I think you have to go Rayburn over this Garcia dude. I mean, like, I just don't like testing pitchers who have elite skills, even if they had like a blow up of a start. I don't think going at Smiley's an excellent idea when there are other punt options available.
Agreed.
Jed Jerko's really cheap on Draft Street. if you want to target Derek's Kyle Loesch play, righty on righty, I can deal with it for power play. But
and the park is so good there, the park shift. So, I mean, I could see taking some Padres today, even against Loesch, just because that park shift is huge, especially some of the Padres lefties, who we'll get to in a little bit.
But I only bring that up because you don't have the option of Rayburn as a second baseman on Draft Street. Mm-hmm. So that's the only reason I bring that up. Otherwise, it's Rayburn.
I cannot believe Kyle Seager just hit a home run. That is so frustrating because he was so bad last night.
Yeah, it was a mess.
All right, let's talk about some shortstops tonight. I think the guy that I like tonight is the same guy that I like from last night, is Jose Reyes, leading off for a good lineup. I know he doesn't run as much as he did before, but I don't want to pay up for Hanley against Cole Hamels. I'm not really seeing anyone else to be attracted to. Am I wrong, Ben?
I think you're not wrong. I think Jose Reyes is a fine play.
He's just super safe, I think.
He's a safe play, and he's still got an injury-induced cheaper price most places. Hanley's, you're going to have to pay for Hanley, and Hanley's kind of been a little bit on the slump side. But I'm not buying into Cole Hamels is perfectly okay. Is the biggest reason why I'm even looking at Dodgers. I mean, we just automatically assume Cole Hamels is going to be fine. I remember seeing Cole Hamels at times in the last 2 years where he's just been awful looking. So just to automatically assume that a guy that struggled on his way back in rehab in this, to come back earlier than his date that they thought, to go up against a team with righties like the Dodgers have, it just doesn't look like a good situation to me that he's just going to skate through this. And Hanley's a lefty crusher when he's on. So I think Hanley's the top play. But with that said, I don't necessarily know I'm going to have the money to buy Hanley. You do on FanDuel because they have such soft pricing right now. But it's going to be hard to pay for him on Draft Street and some of the other sites, DraftKings and places like that.
I think that's probably right. It's worth noting, though, I was listening to the ESPN Fantasy Baseball podcast, and Tristan Cockcroft and Carabell both said just put Hamels back in your lineup tonight. They had no worries about him, so I definitely don't think I can't see myself paying for Hanley in cash games tonight at all.
What did Stefania Bell say since you're listening to that podcast?
She was on yesterday, and I don't remember.
I know those guys they're great. They're awesome for the yearly game, but I don't know if they are looking at it just from a day-to-day standpoint as much as like we are. So for this game, but
it's all about gathering latent information, dude. Just gathering like literally as much information on the sport that you're playing every day as possible.
No, I understand, but the way these guys look at it is put him back in your lineup because over the next 2, 3, 4, 5 starts he's going to be fine, which I agree with. But today I don't.
Someone in the chat just asked about Jeter. Are you on Jeter at all, Cardi? It's not the right platoon tonight at all.
Yeah, it's not the right platoon tonight. Lackey's a decent pitcher. I think there's better shortstops tonight. I think for value, I like Asdrubal Cabrera against Jason Vargas. I don't know where Lombardozzi qualifies. If he qualifies at short anywhere, he has a good, pretty good play tonight. I think Reyes is a good play. Yeah, short is kind of shallow tonight, so I can see maybe trying to reach for Jeter, but I think there's better guys you can go with.
Yeah, I think that people make a mistake when they're like, "Oh, I'm punting," and then they just take a guy who's there. Like, you can always find a guy for whatever price range who's in like a decent spot with the platoon or with the over/under or whatever.
Yeah,
and there's not a story you can tell yourself where Jeter's in a good spot tonight.
Yeah, if you're gonna punt, I mean punt wisely. Like, punt with a guy who has a bunch of factors working in his favor. Because if he's cheap to begin with, it's probably because he's not very good. So at least make sure he's got the matchup, so that you have some chance of him doing something.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about third base, though. I think that this is going to be an interesting conversation tonight. Paying up for Longoria, is that something you're comfortable with, Ben?
Yeah, I think I am. I would pay up for Longoria ahead of paying up for Hanley. If we put those two if you have to choose, I'd rather go a little cheaper on my shortstop and pay up for my third baseman. Only because I like the cheap options for the third base in the early slate. I'm not as sold on them for this late slate. I did mention David Freese. I don't hate David Freese against Gio in that matchup, just simply because he performs better, way better against left-handed pitchers, and that could be a matchup, especially if he's batting in the fourth spot. Is he batting in the fourth spot again today? He normally gets that when they're facing a lefty. Let me see. No, they moved him down to seventh. So I don't like him as much at the 7 spot, so you could probably disregard everything I just said. But there are some other options if you're not going to go. I know. Set that up to fail. But 7 spot's not terrible. It's not quite what I was hoping for with the 4 spot. But yeah, there's some other options, but nothing really is as great as Longoria in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it's a shame that Donaldson was in the early slate because I love playing Donaldson. Someone in the chat just asked about Carlos Santana. He's been awful. Is he hurt? Is he just slumping? Like, what's the deal, Derek?
Santana's on my short list of third baseman today. I'm not overly concerned about his struggles yet. He's a switch hitter with the platoon going in the right direction today, even though he's close to neutral-ish, but he's better against lefties. Vargas isn't a very good lefty. So Santana's a guy I'd be fine with today. I don't know. I'd rather pay up for Longoria than Hanley, like you guys were saying, but still, I don't know. I think there are other options you can go with at third base. I think if you're going to – there's good punt options at third. I think Don Kelly is a great one. He's batting second. We were talking about him before. He's a great punt option. I think Ryan Flaherty, if he qualifies where you're playing at third, he's a good one. Juan Francisco, I don't know if he qualifies at third anywhere, but he's a good one. So, yeah, I think there's definitely options. I think Chase Headley is actually kind of a sneaky option, even though he's up against Loesch. I think the park shift there kind of puts him into the conversation.
Padres love killed me last night.
Don't overextend yourself in the Padres game. Derek's already warned against that. He's just giving off some of these guys that he could see doing stuff. I forgot to add Nick Castellanos as an option too. I don't hate the righty in that particular matchup because Rienzo's awful. So and he's still cheap places, and then you have Lowry who's a decent option as well, going up against Tillman. So
Hector Sanchez has more home runs in the Colorado-San Francisco series than Buster Posey does. Baseball sucks.
It definitely it tests your resolve for sure.
It does for sure. And then I guess one other guy to mention at the third base position would be God, I don't know. I was gonna say maybe Aramis Ramirez, but then I realized that would be recommending another guy against my guy Tyson Ross. So that's probably not something I want to do. Maybe I don't like Tyson Ross as much as I thought. Maybe that's the thing. All right. Before we talk about outfield, both you guys are going to give out 2 of your stacks for the day, and if you agree. That's fine. But Ben, who are your 2 offenses that you would like to stack this evening?
Tampa Bay has to be one of them. At least 3 or so. They're a good FanDuel stack. I like it if you're gonna pair the 2 outfielders, Myers and Joyce, and then if you want to throw Longo in, that's a good stack. I'm also in this Toronto-Baltimore game, but I think in the Toronto-Baltimore game you can pick each side, especially if you're doing the GPP stuff. You could go Baltimore stack or you could go Toronto stack. And either way is good. I think you could luck into one on either side. And then obviously, I know this is 3, but obviously Detroit. But we talked about Detroit all night. Detroit's the number 1 stack. It's not even close.
Okay. Cardi?
Completely agree. Detroit is the top stack. We've talked about them. There's, even some of the guys who don't have the platoon advantage, like Miggy, are worth playing because of the price and because Renzo is so bad. I agree with the Tampa Bay stack. That would be my second one. I'm really disappointed to see David DeJesus is not playing tonight, because I would have liked him better than like Joyce or Myers, at least in terms of value, because he matches up better against Pelfrey's ground balls. But he's not in there, but they're still good Tampa Bay guys: Loney, DeJesus, Joyce, Zobrist. And then those are my 2. And then if you're gonna go with a third, I guess Cleveland.
No love for the
maybe
Yankees.
Baltimore. Yeah, no Yankees.
Yankees
not as a stack.
A couple stack. You could go. I could see some cheap guys on the Yankees. Like if you go. Well, I guess none of them are cheap. Never mind. But if you could go McCann, Beltran, and Ellsbury, and go cheap other places, that's a fun one.
Ellsbury has a huge discount on FanDuel. You could easily go Ellsbury, McCann, and get Gardner in there on FanDuel really easily. Not that Gardner's like a great player or anything, but you could make that stack pretty easy.
Yeah,
now Beltran's expensive, but all right. Let's talk about outfielders then. Favorite outfield play of the day, guy you're trying to lock in no matter what, Ben.
I disagree with Derek a little bit on Matt Joyce. I look more at the split when it comes to how dominant Joyce is versus lefties. Versus righties as a lefty. And so I'm really in this one. It's just simply playing the guy that I think has the best platoon split, the platoon advantage, and that's Joyce. For me, because his price is just really cheap across the board. But there are plenty of high-priced guys in the outfield position that look good. Trout looks good facing a lefty. Even if it's Gio's susceptible to home runs. And then you got Bautista against a fly ball pitcher that gives up a ton of home runs. And then Ryan Braun facing a guy that can struggle. There's plenty of more expensive options if you want to pair them with other guys. But for me, mad? For me, price included, you got to go Joyce.
Yeah, I didn't mean to imply that I dislike Joyce. Joyce would probably be, my guy who I'm going to try to work into every lineup tonight, because the platoon split is huge with him. He's up against a bad pitcher. I just meant that I would have liked DeJesus a little bit better for value, just because his platoon split's big too. He's got the same pitcher, and just batted ball wise, he matches up better. But Joyce is still a great play tonight. In terms of other outfielders that I like, the Kelly punt, obviously, where he qualifies. Rayburn, where he qualifies at outfield. I think Nick Swisher, where he qualifies at outfield, is good. I think a little off the radar, I like a couple of these Kansas City outfielders tonight. I like Aoki and Dyson against Masterson. Masterson's a side armor with extreme platoon issues, and he's a ground ball guy. So I think with Aoki and Dyson having the platoon advantage against a guy like Masterson, and both of them being kind of, batting average speed guys, not necessarily power, so the ground balls won't matter for them. I think both of them are pretty good options tonight.
Yeah, I will say on.
And I think a couple of the Baltimore guys too. I like Markakis, and David Lowe. I don't know how you pronounce that.
It's Lowe. He used to be a Royal.
Lowe.
Yeah, it's just Lowe. On Draft Street, Alan Craig is still super, super cheap. I know he's not like in a great spot or anything, but it's kind of weird. The last couple nights, taking like extremely low-priced superstars has really paid off. Like Cabrera last night, and I think it was Longoria 2 or 3 nights ago when he just went insane. Just when those guys with those elite skill sets get down to that price, it doesn't really hurt to take a shot on them at all.
Well, that's because you can't pay attention. Pricing goes by performance on a lot of sites, not including FanDuel, but a lot of sites performance-based pricing. When baseball is a game of highs and lows, stretches, and these guys, when you get them on the cheap, they're going to pay off. Especially like look at Miggy, he's down to 3,800. That's insane. That's just stupid. So you got to that problem has to be remedied at some point, but at this juncture, it's just never going to be.
Yeah, no, I think you're right, but I mean you have to monitor it though. Like that's like a winning strategy is taking guys with great skills at low cost.
It really is. I just Googled a picture of Don Kelly's nuts, and I saw Davis and Derek's face right on them. You guys love the Don Kelly. I can't get over this. I'm like, I had to go Google Don Kelly's face.
What I'm wondering is why was Ben Googling Don Kelly's nuts in the first place?
Because I just knew it was what was going to pop up. But no, seriously, this is like ridiculous. No, I get why y'all like Don Kelly. I mean, we just talked about how bad Rienzo is, but seriously. I don't think he's a must-play at all. But
he's not a must-play, but he's a great punt, batting second with a platoon advantage against a terrible pitcher. I mean, you're not going to find a better punt than that.
Yeah.
That would allow you... I will say this. If you want to avoid some overlap, and you take Kelly and you punt shortstop or something like that, you can play Greinke instead of Waka pretty easily. And that will... If Greinke outscores Waka by, 3 points... You're looking at like a cash game sweep tonight. So I think that there's definitely like a solid logic behind it.
I see the logic, but I'm still gonna make fun of you about it because
I'm also just a whore for at bats, just an at bat whore.
Yeah, but on FanDuel, that's not necessarily a good thing if they throw up negatives every time they come to the plate.
We've talked about this before though. I think it was like Dinker Leone or one of them was talking about it, and I was right with them. The advantage of an extra at bat far outweighs the half a point you're going to lose if he gets out.
Okay, here's where I'm going to take. Here's where we're going to go with this. If Kelly is good, or no, let's say Kelly's bad for his first 2 at bats. He just grounds sharply out and just gets 2 outs. Rienzo's sucking. They pull him by the 3rd inning. Kelly, is he going to stay in the game? Is he going to see lefties the rest of the way? I mean, that's where you got to start worrying about stuff like that. So that's where I'm just kind of as a punt play fine, but I'm not as.
Are the Tigers big on pinch hitting and defensive replacements? I don't know. That's a serious question.
I'm looking at this right now. Hold on.
I mean, they have outfield depth behind Don Kelly. I mean, look.
It looks like last year Detroit was about kind of league average in terms of trying to get the platoon advantage. So
Torrey Hunter's not in the game. I could see Torrey Hunter getting in the game as a replacement. unless he's just getting a day off. But I would not be shocked.
Well, that's about enough Don Kelly talk. We had about 8 minutes too much of Don Kelly talk. That's it for outfielders. I think we're good. Who is your guaranteed dong, Ben? This is like your favorite thing about daily fantasy baseball. You love calling out home runs.
Man, I didn't know you were going to ask me that question.
How did you not know? Have you not been watching the show?
I mean, I've been on the show, but nobody's asked me the guaranteed dong question.
I've been asking it to everybody, dude.
Oh man, guaranteed dong. I'm going Pinto dong. Pinto dong.
Yasmiel, I watched him hit one in person, and it was out of the park in about 1.8 seconds. It was so sexy.
Yeah, I'm going Pinto because he's fun. Miggy's the easy call. Pinto's the fun call.
Cardi?
Miggy's the easy call. I'm not gonna go with it. There's a couple other easy calls. I mean, you can go Chris Davis, or I'll go Alex Avila. Alex Avila dong.
Ooh,
Yeah, that was gonna be mine.
Avila versus
Okay.
Pinto. Let's do that.
All right. Oh, I don't even know. I'm gonna, since I for whatever reason mentioned him like 9 times on the show today. Alan Craig dong against Nice. He's that's gonna happen just because.
I'm cool.
I mentioned him so many times, and he's super cheap, but he's not going to end up in my lineups anywhere. And so when it happens, I'm going to like be watching it on MLB TV and be like, yes, nailed it, and then go to check my scores and realize he's not in anywhere.
I think another one, Juan Francisco dong. Super out on a limb call, but
Hey
I
man,
like
that's my guy, dude. That's my guy. You can't.
he's
write
my
it.
guy. I love
Dude.
Francisco.
He is he number one? Did I have him number one? I have him as the number one third baseman on the ranks. Come
He's
on.
batting 5th tonight too. I don't know about number 1 third baseman tonight, but I like Francisco.
You hush. It includes the cost of
Oh, okay. That I can say it.
Yeah.
Then I think
Where is he third base eligible at?
everywhere except for FanDuel.
FanDuel sucks. FanDuel sucks sometimes.
They've got him as a first baseman, so you're kind of screwed because you got to go Miggy, and you can't justify going Francisco. But he's third base everywhere else and cheap everywhere else.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
FanDuel is like basically where they're playing. So for Toronto, he's playing first base, but it's annoying.
FanDuel is just, and Dink said this in the chat. They're the 65-year-old dad of DFS. They're never gonna change. They are who they are. Whatever. All right. Any parting words of wisdom from either one of you? Any advice you'd like to give?
I think we covered it tonight. I don't know. I don't have anything else. I don't think. I think
We couldn't talk yesterday's show.
We didn't talk about on the outfielders. I think Smith is not necessarily. I think there's better options tonight, but Smith is an option even against Loesch just because of the park shift.
Okay, Ben.
Yeah, I think you know what you got to do. You got to go Miggy. You throw in some Kinsler probably, and do some of these little stacks. Find the guys you like, the guys that we talked about, and you know who the pitchers are. It sounds like it's Waka, Greinke, and then maybe Tyson Ross if you want to side with Davis. But Tyson Ross and Simon if you're going into the 3 starting pitcher play sites. So.
Yeah, I think tonight's more of a like combining a couple of mini stack kind of nights rather than going big on anything. I think like a mini Detroit and a mini Tampa Bay stack looks good rather than like a big stack on either.
Yeah,
I think that's
totally.
the way to go. Yeah. Word. I think that does it. We're done here at Fantasy Insiders TV. Signing off. Davis Maddock, Derek Carty, Ben Pritchett. We'll all be on Twitter answering your questions.
Are we dropping the elite stuff yet? Is Soccer Dave around?
Soccer Dave's right there, but I don't know if he wants us to talk about elite right now or not.
No, we are starting tomorrow. We'll be basically drafting with the elite software. It's going to be a fun show with Napsterman, Dave Lochran, and our own Mr. Tuttle 05. So yeah, make sure you're downloading the app. It's in if you have an iPhone, iPod Touch, or an iPad, There's even a special iPad app available now for the Fantasy Elite show. Or Fantasy Elite. So, yeah, tomorrow will kind of be the first official day of them sponsoring us, and I'm really excited. It's gonna be a fun show. So, good stuff.
Word. That'll
Word.
do it for us here at Fantasy Insiders TV with all this reverb. Later, guys. Oh man, I don't have lineups posted anywhere. I'm like,
Yeah, Davis, you got to draw us back in when we start getting a little